Welcome back to Curated Clean, the podcast, where we get our hands dirty so you don't have to. We are your hosts. I'm Mike.
My name is Mandy.
And I'm Whitney.
Welcome back to the show. Today's episode is on, drumroll please, vitamin D. What are our first thoughts when we think of vitamin D? Bones. I think of bones.
I think of sunshine.
Yeah, sunshine.
Just because that's a
Calcium. I also think of calcium.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All those good things.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be talking today about vitamin D, what it is exactly, what it does, some of the symptoms, if you're deficient and those kind of things. You can also have too much vitamin D.
Yes.
And then how to supplement and that kind of stuff if you choose to do so.
Right.
So who wants to start it off today?
Well,
Let's start off with a really cool point. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Vitamin D is one of the vitamins that you can produce in your body.
Yes.
It's really, you can't just produce a vitamin, but vitamin D you can.
Mm-hmm.
Vitamin K can be produced by bacteria in the gut, but not as prevalent.
Yes.
I mean, the role of vitamin D is to go outside, get in the sun, your sun takes it in, chemical reactions happen, and you get vitamin D. So
Right. It's pretty cool that your body, there's this endogenous process that happens, and it's called vitamin D synthesis, and it's when those UV rays hit your skin, and it just triggers this amazing, ability in your body to create a vitamin.
Right.
So a lot of people, not to jump ahead, but we live in a world where we're told constantly to wear sunscreen.
right.
And I you guys know, anyone who knows me knows that I am fanatical about sunscreen.
Sunscreen queen.
I wear sunscreen year round. It is a massive thing for me. I'm just crazy about it. And so we live in a world, in the United States, I was reading in, I think it was Pubmed, that 41% plus of the United States alone is deficient in vitamin D.
Right. And think about this past year, 2020, a lot of people stayed physically inside. They did not leave their houses. So if you've never been vitamin D deficient before, not saying that you are now, but it might be something where if you notice that you are feeling a little bit more sluggish or something within this past year, past 7-8 months, it could be because you're not gained
some weight. I mean, maybe that's the
fatigue
quarantine donuts. Who knows?
You've had some more joint pain, things like that. What were you going to say, Whitney?
Well, I was just saying, and we live not only just this past year, we live in a world where it's increasingly we don't go outside as much. I mean, I know I work in an office and I don't go outside very often. I try to, but especially in the winter months when it's cold, I'm inside and I'm not going back out. So
Yeah.
we just live in a world where that just happens to be the case too.
And I'm not telling people to not wear sunscreen.
No.
We absolutely need to. The skin can do skin damage. It can cause skin cancers. So you just have to be extremely careful. I'm not telling anyone to be flagrant about that at all.
No. Right.
But it does. I think, Michelle, you found a statistic. It can sunscreen alone can stifle the absorption by like 90%.
People who use sunscreen, which we do, when applied correctly, I should also say safe sunscreen. We have an episode coming up that will be discussing that. But safe sunscreen.
Right.
When applied properly, it can reduce vitamin D absorption by more than 90%.
Which
more
makes
than
it
90%, meaning that you've basically not been outside.
Yeah,
So
precisely.
it's not to say to not go outside. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying to go outside safely, because a person like me, if you're not watching, we're all very pale. We're sisters. We all come from the same gene pool. We're very, very pale.
And ironically enough, we do actually have, our mother was half Hispanic.
Yeah,
exactly.
But we did not seem to.
We didn't get that. She was also half Irish, so we got more of that, and not a little bit of the dark Irish, but not really anything like that. So we have light eyes in general. We don't have super dark hair, but we have pale skin, very, very pale skin. So they recommend, I think it's the CDC, recommends you going outside at essentially high noon, the brightest part of the day, for at least 15 minutes with no sunscreen on and a large portion of your body exposed.
Yeah. Can't just be like your face and your hands.
Can't just be your face and your hands. It needs to be your arms, your stomach, your back. Okay, but here's a reality. If the three of us went outside for even 15 to 20 minutes at high noon, we would literally have blisters. I would be sunburnt to a lobster.
Yes.
My skin would be tender. It would not be good. and then talk about detoxifying to have to the repair that would need to happen
Exactly.
is insane.
So it's not really worth it. You have to find that balance.
Right.
Also, though, I mean, those with darker skin tones,
exactly.
They're up to like 82% deficient in vitamin D because the melanin in the skin,
it acts like a shade.
Sunscreen. Yeah.
It reduces the absorption of vitamin D.
Yeah, I'm assuming that vitamin D synthesis just is not triggered as much, which is great for keeping them safer from not that they don't need sunscreen, but just that they are safer from skin damage and skin cancer.
Right.
But then on the flip side, they're also deficient in vitamin D.
Exactly. Their body can't make that vitamin D trigger.
Because honestly, the best way to get vitamin D, aside from supplementation, is to get it through your skin.
Right.
Because even changing your diet, a lot of the things that I found, good foods really high in vitamin D, but I mean, not super high. They had like, I think 3 or 4%. So in order to get that for serving wise, you're going to, I don't know how you would get enough food down to make up for your daily amount. I did read a study that said that cod liver oil, 1 tablespoon per day was over the amount that you needed daily.
Right.
So that's...
well, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but for our vegans and our vegetarians out there, and I always think of this because my husband is he's off and on. He's an off and on vegan or off and on vegetarian, but most of our week he spends vegetarian. It's just almost impossible to get good amounts of vitamin D from plant materials. So if you are a vegan or vegetarian, listen up. You've got to supplement. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on.
So vitamin D is actually a fat-soluble vitamin.
Right.
Okay. And we know that it can help your body absorb and retain calcium and phosphorus, which are critical for building bone. That's where our first thing is kind of just bones when you
teeth.
think. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, it can also, laboratory studies have shown that it can reduce cancer cell growth. It can help control infections and reduce inflammation. But one of the things that we found in our research, Mandy is going to go into a few more detail on some of these subjects. But one of the things that we all found in our research that we did not realize, and science doesn't know a lot about this, is that almost all, but many, many, many of the body's organs and tissues all have receptors for vitamin D.
They may not all use it necessarily use as much, but they all have receptors.
Well, what it means is we don't know.
We don't know why. We don't know. We know that all the cells are capable of taking in vitamin D. We don't know why they need it. And science doesn't have an answer for that yet.
No. I dug deep for you. I've been all over NIH. I've been through the CDC. I've been through Pubmed and the BMJ.
Did you want to tell them what Pubmed is exactly in case they've never heard of it?
Okay. So a lot of these places that I'm talking about, and just so you know, these are places that we are utilizing week by week. Like I've said before, we are not doctors and we are not scientists, but all of us and all of you out there are more than capable of doing your own research. If there's something that you're concerned about or something that you're interested in, this information is out there for everyone, and it's often free. Okay, free. So when I talk about something like Pubmed, this is a U.S. government-run site that has white page studies from peer review studies from white page journals, where you can go in and you can type in something you're interested about, a medical something that's concerning you, and I mean literally usually hundreds of studies will pop up, unless it's something extremely rare. But you can just sift through these things and you can find lots of information. The BMJ is a British medical journal. I believe a lot of their studies are available for free. The NIH is the National Institute of Health. So these websites are out there for you to take advantage of.
And they are accessible.
Yes, they are accessible.
And let's say, okay, I don't have internet at home. I need to get that. A lot of places you can go buy a cup of coffee someplace, hang out, and use the internet there.
Or even public libraries.
Yes.
So
there are resources in your towns and cities or counties that you can use to get access to these places.
So they're really for citizens, and you can go find these things. So take advantage of those things. One of the things we keep telling you guys is we want to empower you to go and be able to find out information and take control of your health yourself. Don't just take our word for it. Everything we're telling you today, even seems like not a big deal. It's just vitamin D, but dig deeper. Find out for yourself. And make your own conclusions.
Right. And we're about to talk about what some of these issues are more in depth.
Yes, exactly.
So we talked about that it's a fat-soluble vitamin. We didn't talk about kind of not exactly what happens. It can be taken in, and then the reaction happens in the kidney and the liver. There's a couple different ways.
It's called a hydroxylation. Yes.
And that's vitamin D3 when it's formed in the skin. It's a chemical reaction when a steroid called 7-dehydrocholesterol is broken down by the light, and that UVB light that we were talking about.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So go ahead, Mandy. You had a few other things on
No.
So
Like you talked about that, it also enables normal bone mineralization. It prevents hypocalcemic tetany. You've all had like a muscle spasm out of nowhere that's usually caused by an deficiency in vitamin D or the calcium vitamin D ratio issue. Insufficient vitamin D in children can lead to rickets, which we all know causes those brittle bones. Now, we like to think that in the modern world this is not a problem anymore, but it can still be an issue. And even in adults can lead to something called osteomalacia, which is like the adult version of after the bones have already fused. The same kind of process as rickets, which can also lead to in older people like we think of as osteoporosis. So, because one of the first things I thought of with vitamin D was osteoporosis, for older adults,
And what I was saying is older ages when there's a decrease in that 7-dehydrocholesterol levels and changes in their skin. So their skin is literally not as taut as it was, or we think about the surface of things. If the surface is different, then the absorption rate will be different. So just things to consider, people living in a nursing home or being cared for, we don't think about necessarily the condition of their skin and that it's aged. We think about more of a beauty way more than in a, your skin is what? Your largest organ.
Yes.
Right. Well, and I also found, where was that study? There was a study, I found a study in Pubmed and in the NIH as well. And I knew that vitamin D could help with the bone strength, but it also helps with limb strength, they discovered. So it's helping with the actual muscular system that's connected to the bones, which I thought was super interesting because that's another thing that we think of atrophy happening to older people living in nursing homes. This could happen to anybody really, but we think of older folks, and so we have these older adults. It's not just osteoporosis though. We can help them with their limb strength, which it could be
decrease in falls.
Oh my goodness, stop the falls.
And actually helping reverse osteoporosis because a lot of times, as someone who had a hysterectomy when I was 25, obviously that put me into menopause at that point. So being younger, I've had to think about those things probably a little sooner than most. So I know a lot of times they tell me to do a lot of just weight bearing exercise. If you can get their bone, their joints feeling healthier and things with vitamin D, then you go ahead and that also will help strengthen. They kind of work hand in hand then. Getting the muscles built back up, being able to get, so it all just kind of comes full circle together.
Yeah. And so all that good stuff. It also, it reduces inflammation in the body in general. Inflammation can cause a myriad of issues, as we know.
Right.
I think we've touched on this with a few other podcasts already. But so reducing that inflammation in the body can just help your body function and function properly. It modulates cell growth, neuromuscular and immune function, and also I had no idea, but it helps with glucose metabolism. I had no idea.
Yes, I didn't
to the
know.
point where I found a study in the I think it was by the BMJ or NIH, I can't remember, but where they said 2,000 IUs a day in infants can reduce the chance of them developing type 1 diabetes by 78%, which blew my mind.
Yeah. That is wild. And, so when we're talking about blowing our mind of something we didn't know, I also didn't know that obviously it helps with cardiovascular disease, but I didn't think about it helping with cognitive impairment in older adults too. So not only are we talking about them taking in their skin, but also their brain function as well. I also didn't know that it can, low levels can contribute to severe asthma in children too. Didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
There's some studies from Harvard, some Harvard studies that talked about that.
It's super interesting.
And obviously cancer is one of those things too. A lot of, as a cancer survivor, you guys were almost there. We were all chronically low in vitamin D.
Right.
The one thing I want to pop in here really quickly is there are differing opinions on the safe or
recommended,
or even the levels that they're looking for, I should say, what the goal level should be. So Western medicine, I've had regular doctors, I'll put them in a category, tell me that my vitamin D levels were just fine between like 30 and 50. But a lot of alternative care practitioners that I've been to really like it between 60 and 100. They actually like the level to be a little bit higher to help ward off against infections, inflammation, and that kind of stuff. That could also be along with my genetic profile. We know that MTHFR tends to have higher homocysteine levels, which is telling you the amount of inflammation there is in the body.
Right.
So that could be why they were looking for more of that. But at the end of the day, there was a time in my life where I had meridian scanning done. We'll go over that another day, but meridian scanning was actually looking at my kidney meridian, and it was saying that my kidney meridian was taxed. But when we did blood work to back that up, my doctor was fantastic. Every time that I had meridian scanning done, they went and did blood work as well to back up those findings. Well, when we did the blood work, it showed nothing wrong with my kidneys at all. So the doctor had to look at a broader spectrum of what fell into the kidney meridian. Well, what it ended up being was hyperthyroidism and high calcium levels, all affected by what? Low vitamin D
low
levels.
vitamin D.
And my vitamin D level was a 2. That's right. 1, 2. That's what it was. It was 2. That's pretty much nothing. And for somebody, a practitioner who is looking at it between 60 and 100, I was severely deficient in vitamin D.
You were severely deficient by Western med standards.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking basement level here. And this was a person, me, during treatment, that I was taking vitamin D. I was taking 2,000 IUs a day. Now, I probably need to be at least 5,000. I now take 5,000 IUs a day. And we'll talk about supplementation here in just a minute.
Sure.
But the reality is, meridian scanning was saying it was my kidneys because it was seeing in that cycle of either going through kidneys or liver, and it was actually seeing it there. So
right. Well, and our MTHFR people out there, if you've listened to that podcast already, you know that your liver and your kidneys, all those toxin removal organs can be taxed.
Right.
So, and if you need them to create that hydroxylation to create the vitamin D that's bioavailable, you've got to think right there. I could have a problem with that. If they're already taxed and then they have another thing they've got to do, another whole other process they've got to create. You know, you just need to realize that might be something we might just need to go straight to supplementation. So that you can get that up, so you can take a little bit of that, stress off of those organs. Give it a break, so it's not so taxed.
And make sure you're talking to your practitioner about this, because too much vitamin D can cause constipation, diarrhea, dizziness. It can cause a whole slew of things, and so you want to make sure that you are definitely supplementing enough, because there are, I mean, let's talk about some of the other vitamin D deficiency things.
About some of the stuff.
Joint pain, chronic pain, weight gain, high blood pressure, restless sleep, poor concentration, headaches, bladder problems. We've talked about constipation, diarrhea. If you have too much, you can also have it if you have too little. Fatigue is a big one. Anything else we want to add to that list? I mean, cancer, there's all sorts of things. Well, and if every cell and organ tissue in your body has receptors for vitamin D, it must play, and like we said, science doesn't know yet, it must play a vastly important role in tons of cellular functions.
And I think also in the physical symptoms, I think also there are some mental emotional things that come along with it as well. Obviously, I don't know I think we talked about it on a recent episode about seasonal affective disorder, and so that's one thing. But I think also, I know they say like tiny beds and UV lights or happy lights. No, my last office we actually had a happy light because our office was back. We only had a tiny window and it really wasn't open very often, so we had a happy light. And now that I've done some research, I don't think it actually has the proper because you want the UVB rays, and I think this didn't have that. But ultimately, I think it was maybe more of a mental thing. It made us feel better. We'd turn it on and we were quote unquote happier.
Felt happier.
But so maybe that's also just a mental thing, but I think getting out in it makes a difference emotionally for me anyway.
It does.
When it's dark and dreary, I don't feel as well. But
I'm all, this is switching topics, but I'm also hypothyroid. So as a person with taking supplementation every day for that, I actually take a compounded pharmaceutical for that, bioidentical, but it's still pharmaceutical. I did not know that vitamin D aids in the proper production of thyroid hormones. I didn't know that it improved TSH levels, and I also didn't know that it improves the T4 to T3 conversion. So your thyroid actually makes T4, but that's not usable.
Right.
It has to go through chemical processes to make it in the usable form T3. So during my compound, it has a different ratio of T4 to T3 based on how quickly I create the conversion.
Right.
But I didn't know that vitamin D plays an important part of that. So we talk about, why am I hypothyroid? Is it because for most of my life I was severely vitamin D deficient? And is that something with enough supplementation, can I change my thyroid function?
Yeah, that would be really interesting. And I wonder if there is a study out there that looked at that, vitamin
Solely
D.
just that.
I did not search for that, but I wonder if there's something out there for that. Another thing that I found was that there was a Pubmed study on Pubmed that 96% of people who had heart attacks were severely deficient in vitamin D.
Well, it does affect the cardiovascular. So
Right.
so but it's interesting.
I don't think that people think about that. I think they think about bone health and, I don't want osteoporosis.
And skin
But are
cancer
they
and
thinking about their heart health?
Right.
I don't think they're thinking about that when it comes to vitamin D. At least when
Not
I
the
think
first thing I think
that's not
of.
something I think of at all.
Right.
So that's something to think of as well. I don't know if we do want to circle back around and talk about seasonal affective disorder and how it can or just depression in general. I found some interesting stuff on Psychology Today, and how we have this need to be out in the sunshine for mental health.
Yeah.
And we know that getting outside, we hear it all the time, get outside, go for a walk, something like that. And I always thought, I thought it had something to do maybe with your blood pumping and your endorphins from physical, which it probably does have something to do.
Which that does too.
That does,
So,
right,
but I'd never thought about the actual, effects of the sun.
Just being in the sunshine.
The energy of the sunlight hitting my skin, and I found some really interesting information. So, I don't want to make light of any of this, but it did kind of remind me of a bear getting ready for hibernation, which was some of the
that just made me laugh so much. But it's true. I can say that because I am an SAD person. I do have issues with seasons. And because I do, I know that I prepare myself. We had a huge amount of snow come in for over 2 weeks. And I had to happy light myself, essentially.
Right.
The lighting in my house can change, and I had to make sure that I had my bright lights on to make sure that I could get up and go in for the day, because I do feel like a bear in hibernation where all I want to do is eat.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just want to lay in bed. I don't want to get up and do things. And as a mom of two, that's not an option when you have snow days every day and you've got kids running around.
Now, and I want to interject in here too. While it is linked with depression, it is not the same as depression. If you are dealing with clinical depression, if you are having thoughts, suicidal thoughts, feelings of worthlessness, along with other symptoms, please find a practitioner that you can speak to and get help.
Reach out to someone.
Yeah, reach out to someone. Get that started. There is no shame in it. We have all had counseling through the years. It has been invaluable to our health, to our mental health. And I would hope in this day and age that everyone would know that there's no shame in seeking out mental health care. It's so important. So I don't want to make light of any of this.
You are
at all.
important. You are important.
You are important by yourself, just you. You are important. But
call a hotline, reach out to someone. Usually churches are available. They usually have somebody. If you call that number, somebody will answer. Yes.
Yeah. So don't let money hold you back.
Right.
Seek help. But seasonal affective disorder can have symptoms like sleepiness, craving carbs, difficulty concentrating, depressed mood, anxiety, irritability, weight gain, lethargy, decreased libido, and hyperphagia, which is increased in consumption of food, which, like I said, just made me think of a bear getting ready for winter. And I do feel like that a lot of times in the winter time.
Right.
I do feel a little bit like that.
Which is interesting because we talk about we pack on the winter pounds. We often associate that to, I'm just not working out as much, but it could literally be because
we've got this vitamin D
deficiency. Now it can be stored in the body, which makes it special. Yes. You can take it in and it will store it for a long amount of time. But if you don't start with enough, by the time you get to the end of those months, you're completely depleted.
Yeah, you're depleted. You don't have enough to store away. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it says during the winter months, 10% of people living at higher latitudes can deal with this at all times.
Right.
But it can affect massive percentages of people. And so the first thing I thought was, well, we just need to take our vitamin D supplements. You know, that's what we need to do. But then I found a study that was done by the Danish in 2014, and they had their subjects split. Some were doing just supplementation, you know, probably just taking a pill. And then the other ones were actually getting light therapy. So light boxes, like Whitney had talked about, happy lights, things like that. And what they actually discovered was that the people who were doing simply the supplementation on its own had little to no change in their seasonal affective disorder, which blew my mind because I, for some reason, just whenever people would say, "Oh, I'm feeling bluesy during the winter," I have told people, "You need a vitamin D supplement."
You probably just need a vitamin D supplement.
You just need vitamin D.
You just need some vitamin D.
Right.
But it's not that simple. It must literally come down to, well, one thing that we were speculating as we were discussing this before the podcast was, you know, does it have to do with the fact that vitamin D is not really supposed to be absorbed into your stomach? It's supposed to be absorbed through your skin.
Yes.
Right.
So there must be something that has to do with that just because you're taking it more in the stomach, that doesn't mean that your cells can't benefit from that on a blood level. But what is it? It obviously is a mood stabilizer based on your skin.
Right.
Right.
It
The
is.
receptors in your skin.
Now, and
your body can know the difference, apparently.
exactly. And really, it's interesting because we're sitting here saying, you know, we're not scientists, we don't know, but the scientists don't even really know.
Right.
So, you know, you have to find what I think is important is that you have to find what works for you. Okay. So if you're dealing with seasonal affective disorder, you know, maybe try some light therapy. Find some reputable place that has, you know, light therapy offered and go try it out. Or maybe, you know, maybe you're one of the people, it was a small group of people that were helped by only the vitamin D supplementation, but maybe that is you. You know, find out what works for you. Work with a practitioner who will be willing to work with just you, not putting you in a box or a cookie cutter who will go down that path with you.
And now that we've said that cookie cutter care, this, once again, we're always going to circle back to this. In order to be your best medical advocate for your healthful journey, you have got to make detailed lists of symptoms and things that you've noticed. Once again, are you craving certain foods? Is it only, it's only during the winter months that I feel really lethargic, but during the summer I feel almost overactive. You have got,
You're
this
the
comes
only
down
one that
to
knows
you.
your body,
You
so.
have to write these things down. You have to bring them to your practitioner. Your practitioner cannot help you if they don't know.
Right.
And you're around you all the time. So I
Right.
always say you are your best advocate because you know you best.
But I 100% agree. But if you want to make some changes right now, maybe you think, well, gosh, and I always agree. If you can get it from food first, get it from food.
Yes.
Right, but what's the
However-
difference? Vitamin D2 is what, or ergocalciferol is what, or pre-vitamin D, quote unquote, is what's made from plants and fungus.
Right.
So that's different. That's why we say vegetarians and vegans be careful, because if you're eating mostly that, you're getting vitamin D2. That is the precursor. It's not
Body's
as
just gonna
readily
break that
available.
back.
It's not as
Yes.
bioavailable, and your body's going to have to do another hydroxylation to make that happen.
D3 is made from animal product.
Yes.
Right. D3 is made from animal products mostly, like whole eggs and fatty fish,
Beef
things
and
like
a
that.
lot of what am I trying to say? Like liver and other organ meats.
Yeah.
It's in
Right.
a lot of that. There's not a
Yeah.
ton of it, but there is some in there.
So here are the top foods that can help you. Cod liver oil has up to 1,360 IU in just 1 tablespoon. Salmon, 3 ounces, can get you 447 IU. Tuna canned in water, 154 IU. Beef liver, 3 ounces, 42 IU. 1 large whole egg, 41 IU. And 1 sardine canned in oil, 23 IU. Now look, some of those are not that great in numbers,
Right.
but to help you, you can add those foods into your daily intake, and maybe it can help a little bit. On top of that, Michelle's got a few supplements she liked.
So I really like the Thorn brand. It's a D5000, so it's the 5,000
I'm
IUs.
going to spell that out for them.
And Thorn is THORNE. That's a brand that I really like. Another one, and Thorn's a little bit more expensive.
Yes.
I mean, it's not heinously expensive compared to other things, but if you want a really cost-effective brand,
good quality
Now brand
That's
is
the one that I use
is
as
really
well.
good. And this one is it was really, really economical in the price, but it's only 2,000 IU. So just something to be aware of. You want to be, you maybe see a brand that you really like, a reputable brand that you like. There are other brands out there too, but these are just the ones that literally we take. So
Well, and I want to
there's
interject
also
in here.
some liquids too as well.
Yes. And if you are a vegan or vegetarian, there was a brand that I started using the past few years, Ritual. ritual. They have a men's and a women's vitamin. Now, this is not just specifically a vitamin D supplement, but the vitamin D contained in their multivitamins and their prenatals for the women, and even their essential everyday for women, they are all vegetarian. They're all vegan. Their omegas and the vitamin Ds and all that stuff come from microalgae, so you do not have to worry about compromising your your personal convictions, your diet, whatever you're doing, whatever reason you are, down this vegan vegetarian path. You don't have to compromise that. There's probably other ones, but that's the one that I've been using the past couple of years, and I really enjoy it. So
if you have kids and you want to add that into their diets, my children can't do milk. They can do some cheeses, but really can't just do liquid milk. So I really supplement because a lot of people just think, oh, well, they're drinking milk. My kids drink milk alternatives, which also have fortification in it as well. But that's still not, I don't feel it's enough for what we're asking their brains and their bodies to do. So I actually have a liquid that is suspended in olive oil. So there's a couple different brands. I believe Seeking Health. We talked about Dr. Lynch before. He has a brand, Seeking Health, that has some good liquid. I actually got mine from where we live. Mama Jean's is a local drugstore that is holistic stuff. And Mama Jean's has a brand that I use with my kids. So if you live around where we live in Southwest Missouri and you can find one, they carry a brand that my kids really enjoy. It's one drop, boom, you're done, and we move about with our day. So
I even have one that I give to my 7-month-old. He takes it down pretty easily. So hopefully we'll be able to have these like on a website or a blog for you soon, on social media. But I think we're out of time for today, and I hope you've learned. Going. I hope you've learned. I mean, I certainly learned a lot about vitamin D just researching for you guys today.
As well. Yes.
So hopefully we helped you out a little bit. You learned a little bit about vitamin D, what it does, how you can help yourself out a little bit, and we've got lots more on the way for you guys.
More on the way. Thank you for tuning in to this episode all about vitamin D and what it does and how you can supplement for yourself. We always want to say thank you at the end of our podcast for taking your time to listen to us. We know your time is precious. So thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to be back with you next time. So thank you for joining us, and
be healthy.
Be well.
And God bless you.
If you like listening to this podcast, stop by curatedclean.com, where you'll find links to all the different ways you can tune in each week, along with details from each episode. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter for further information on each topic we cover. For video versions of each episode, check us out on YouTube and Facebook. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, where you can find glimpses of all things behind the scenes.